By far the recipe people ask for the most is my roll recipe, so I'm going to show you how to make that now. I get hot tap water, as hot as it'll come out, and to that we're going to add sugar. We're going to stir that up, and we're going to add sugar. We're going to add our yeast to that. And we're just going to let that proof. Now while all this is proofing, I'm going to get this on. This is some milk, because we want to have scalded milk in there. And what all that means is you heat it up almost to where it's boiling. But not quite. If it boils, it'll boil over. So we're going to get close, but not quite. And it'll just kind of start to foam. Then it's scalded. We'll turn that off. We'll let it cool, because remember, really hot liquids and everything else that kills our yeast. Don't be really hot. And for the cinnamon butter, I'm pulling up 2 sticks of butter just to let them start getting soft. So we're going to get this scalded. We're going to let it cool to probably about 120 degrees, maybe 140. And this yeast here, we're going to let it proof. When that's done, we'll make our dough. Okay, I think we're ready. Our milk has been scalded and it's cooled. I can put my finger in it, but it's not burning it. So that's good. So I'm going to add in some butter. It can be melted or softened, but one or the other so that it will mix in nicely. So we're going to add our butter. We're going to add our salt. We are going to add our yeast. You can see it's nice and foamy. We know that's good. And we're also going to add a couple of eggs. Let's get that. Now to this, we are going to add in our scalded milk. Now I have my scale here. The reason I do is because we're going to add 520 grams of scalded milk. Note the scalded part. So I started off with, I like to use 610, 625 grams of milk. But now we're going to add it in, and we're going to measure it this way, because you lose a little bit just to the scalding process. You have some evaporation. And so we don't want to shortchange ourselves on our liquid, because then our bread won't turn out right. And there we go. On 521. We'll drop it just a little bit. Okay, now let's put this in our mixer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it until it's just combined. It's going to look a little bit rough. And then from there, I'm going to let it go another 2 or 3 minutes in the mixer. If you're doing this by hand, let it go about 5 minutes kneading by hand. Okay. And that, done. Let me show you what it looks like. If your bread is ready, it shouldn't stick really to the counter. So I'll go ahead and dump it out and show you. There. And one thing I want to do too, is I'm going to oil my bowl. That will really help when we remove the dough later. So there's our dough. Put a little bit of oil. Doesn't really matter the kind. It's not really going to show up as a flavor in there. Push this out of the way. You can see it's smooth. Because of the scalded milk, our dough is warm. That's going to really help it to rise. And you can see the nice bounce, the spring. It feels nice and smooth. We're going to put it in here. I'm going to toss it in oil. You can see the slight shine. It's going to make sure it doesn't stick on the side. I'm going to cover it, and we're going to let it rise until double. That's going to take, depending on the temperature of your kitchen and how warm your dough is, anywhere from 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So we'll come back when our dough has doubled. See what it looks like now. You see what it looks like when it's doubled. And then we'll roll it out. Okay, our rolls have risen, so let's roll them out. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to flour the counter. That's just going to help keep it from sticking and allow us to roll it out more easily. So let's dump this out. And you can see it's coming out a little bit easier because of that oil. Put it off to the side. And one thing you want to do is you want to knock the air out. That's called knocking it back, punching it down. All we're doing is we are pushing the air out, and it's going to make the Roll's a little bit more tender, not quite as stiff as far as the texture goes. So I'll knead it a few times, and then we're gonna roll it out because I'm making 24 rolls. It's gonna actually fill this whole sheet. I'm gonna use the cookie sheet as my guide, and while my hands are still pretty clean, I'm gonna spray it. Okay, let's get the roll. So we don't want our rolls to stick to the counter, so I'm gonna put a little flour down and we're gonna get it to shape. Okay, so it looks pretty good. One thing that I was doing as I was going through there is I'm going to kind of keep lifting it up. You don't want it to stick to the counter, because if it's stuck to the counter, when you cut it, it'll shrink up. The easiest way to cut it is to use a pizza cutter. So I'll make one cut down the middle. I'll cut each one of those in half. And then once again, I'll make one cut down the middle. Then I'll cut each one of these into approximately thirds. And that will give us our 24 rolls. Now I'll just transfer these onto our cookie sheet, and it will be ready. Let it rise until double. So let's keep an eye on these, and typically when it gets kind of up, probably about that high, that's when I'm gonna know that it's time to put them in the oven. So one thing we're going to want to do at this point too is turn on our oven and get it preheated, because when these start to rise, you're going to want to put them in the oven pretty quickly. And it's probably going to take about 30 minutes or so to rise. And there we go. Now to make sure that nothing sticks to this, I'm going to go ahead and spray the top a little bit. Just real lightly. That's going to prevent the plastic wrap from sticking to it, and it'll pull off a little easier. Okay, our rolls have risen. They're about double in size. We're going to put them in the oven. We're cooking for about 20 minutes. We'll check them, and then if they're not ready, we'll do another 5. So we'll check back in about 20. All right, that's our timer. Let's check them. And those look pretty good. I'm going to pull them out. So you can see we kind of have a golden brown going on top. It's a little browned up here, browned around here. What we're going to do is, now that it's out, I'm going to brush the top with butter. I have a 1/4 cup of melted butter. I'm going to brush the top, and then I'm going to pull them out of the pan to cool. I normally butter them in the pan, because if I butter them when they're out, I end up flipping butter all over the place. It's a little cleaner if I butter them in the pan. Okay. Tops of this is all nice and buttered. Typically do is I look for a good spot to grab it, and just slide a spatula in, kind of get it going, and slip it out. Now I'm going to let these cool on the counter a little bit, and then we will have them with dinner.